Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to this another interesting session again today, guys. Today we want to go ahead and show you how you can launch your Kubernetes cluster and have your nodes running like as easy as possible. If you want to do some testing of your application, or maybe you want to provision a highly productive Kubernetes and highly available production Kubernetes cluster, you really want to follow these steps that we're going to follow, guys. That is the easiest way that you can launch your Kubernetes cluster to have it up and running within the shortest possible time. Let's go right straight into the steps, what you need, guys. And we are going to use kOps. That is another Kubernetes operation tool that you can use it on a command line, same like kubectl, and within the shortest time possible, you can have your cluster up and running with all the nodes provision alongside all the additional resources like security group, internet gateway, and just everything, guys. We're gonna go like from this documentation of Kubernetes, and we'll see how that is going to work. The first thing you want to do is to make sure that you have a jump server. This jump server, we are going to use Terraform to provision this jump server. So this is our space. This is our workspace. So we do have some preliminary codes, which is Terraform, that we are going to use to provision our jump server. That is an EC2 instance. And right here, the first file, let's go one after the other. This is just my Terraform state. So the backend.tf file is configured such that it can store the Terraform state file within an S3 bucket. And then we have just this key right here just to identify the different state files that we have in that specific S3 bucket. So let's go ahead, guys. The next thing is your script. This script is just a simple bash script that is being automated such that you can have your Docker installed at launch time of during the launch time of the instance of the jump server. So that one is, and then also you have your kubectl that is going to be installed, and your Java that is going to be installed. All right. So that one is just a bash script right there. And the next one is just this is just the server, the EC2 instance that you want to provision. This is just your output.tf file that simply it says that go ahead, output the IP of that instance when you launch it. Or this one for the jump server, you can still launch your EC2 instance directly from your console. Okay, you can still go to your console and provision your EC2 instance directly from your AWS console, and you will still be able to achieve this project that we want to do. Okay, so sorry guys, so this EC2 instance was initially terminated, so we are going to use Terraform to launch another one. You could still launch it from the console directly. That's what I was trying to say, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's go back to our code. So the machine that I've been having right there has been T2 large. I'm going to turn that machine to T2 medium. I'm going to turn that machine to T2 medium, instance machine type. Okay, good. I'm going to go into my variable.tf, that's fine, terraform var.tf. I'll change this to T2 medium. Okay. Okay, that's good. So we have that machine configured as T2 medium, and let's see, you have your variable file there, your VPC configuration here with its subnets and everything configured over there for the instance. All right, guys, let's go ahead and use Terraform to apply and then provision that instance, guys. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll do Terraform. We just change that Terraform init. We'll go with we'll do Terraform init first. Okay, Terraform init. Sorry guys, my terminal is hidden right from that. I'm going to just create another terminal just so that we can be able to see what I'm typing. So the first thing we'll do, it will do our Terraform init. This one I just want to provision an instance, so it shouldn't be any problem, guys. Terraform init. Okay. All right. I'm going to cd into 8 into this workspace, and I will cd into okay, right here. Okay, I'm going to run Terraform init right here. Yes. Okay. The initialization is good, and then we'll do a Terraform validate the configuration. Sure, our configuration is valid. Can do our Terraform plan. Yep. Our Terraform plan. We want to see the number of resources that we're going to provision. Okay, our Terraform plan says we are going to be provisioning 6 resources. That's the VPC, including the instance. And so we will go ahead and do our Terraform apply -auto approve, and we'll have that right there. The instance will be provisioned, guys. So that is the instance that's being provisioned. Now, why the instance is being provisioned, let us go ahead to the Kubernetes documentation. Like I said, guys, we are going to use kOps. Okay, that is one of the fastest tools and the fastest way that you can use to launch your Kubernetes. We still have this instance provision as T2 large. We wanted T2 medium, but it's fine, guys, it's fine. Let's go ahead with the process. So right here, this is official Kubernetes documentation. Okay, so you have these different ways that you can provision your cluster. Okay, you can use Bootstrap. Okay, cluster with kubeadm. You can use install with kOps, and also with kubespray. But we are going to use kOps in this case. Sorry, guys. All right, let's go ahead and use kOps in this case. Okay, so kOps, this is the documentation right here, guys. So we are going to follow this documentation to provision that. So it is a Kubernetes tool, okay, operation tool that you can use it, provision, manage, and scale your Kubernetes cluster. And what you provisioning is a highly available production grade Kubernetes cluster. So if we have our instance already right here, this is our instance, the IP is already right here, and we do not need to worry that a lot. We can go ahead and SSH on the instance. I can go ahead and create another terminal right here, and that is good. And I do have my key right here. This is a key. The SSH key is right there, so I'm going to cd into the SSH key. The SSH key file, guys, and we will see what we need. I'm going to go ahead and we will have our IP right there. There we go in the instance. We are right in the instance right now, guys. Let's see, close by remote host. Okay, yeah, so the instance just rebooted. That is why we because we have a script that do reboot the instance at the end of after the end. When the instance actually get provision, it reboots the instance, which is okay. That is why it just exited the instance. So let's go ahead. Sorry guys. So the reboot is still going on right now. That's why you see connection refuse. The reboot is still going on. Let's see if we can SSH on the instance right now. Great. So there we go on the instance, guys. The first thing we are going to do is to create a user. Or even before we create a user, let's go ahead and change the host name. I'm going to change the host name just to make the things a little bit easier and looks a little bit flexible. So vi, I'm going to use sudo vi into /etc/host name /host name. So I'm going to change the host name, guys. And this host name, I'm just going to call it Jump, which is just to mean jump saver. That's what I mean here. And I'm going to save that. And that is it. And I'm going to create a user. I'll have a user add sudo user add. So I'll just call the user Paul. Okay, my first name. And the user has been added, and I'm going to use sudo, give a password to that user, sudo password Paul, sudo password Paul. Let's see what we have. Okay, all right, great. So Paul now has a password. It's been set up, and also he has a password. We are going to go ahead and add Paul to the sudo files, so that Paul can have the privilege to be able to run the sudo commands. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into /etc, and we'll have sudoers right there. That is a file that if you do want to give your user, if you want to give your user that possibility to be able to run sudo commands, you want to have the user configured and added onto that file. Okay, we will look through and I'll show you exactly where you are going to do that changes. So when you go down, you are going to see root or somewhere right here. The root user is somewhere right here, but it is not here that you're supposed to add the user. You certainly add the user right here. So I'm going to add Paul right there, and you go ahead, copy that and paste right there, and you are good. Save that, and you out, guys. So that is it for how you do configure the user. And if you notice that, we can see that we can switch to Paul's sudo switch user to Paul. Okay, the user is Paul right now. Sorry guys, the user is Paul. So let's see, we do check to make sure that kubectl has been installed, because when we launched the instance, we had a script that was going to install all this, install kubectl, Java, and also including Terraform as well as AWS CLI, but which is not a requirement for this project, guys. The only thing that is a requirement for this project is to make sure that you have kubectl installed and Java. Okay, so those are the things. Docker 2 is running on it, but we do not really need Docker right now for this particular project on getting your Kubernetes cluster up and running. So I'm going to do kubectl dash version. Let's see if kubectl will respond. Okay, great. So kubectl is installed. Okay, that is it, guys. Let's go ahead. I'm going to do a sudo reboot so that I can have that host name take effect, because the host name has been changed. I want the host name to take effect, so I'm going to reboot this instance again, guys. All right, so while the instance is rebooting, I do want to take you through the documentation of kOps. It's official documentation for Kubernetes. So it says this question shows how to easily install a Kubernetes cluster on AWS Cloud. So remember, guys, we're using AWS Cloud. Okay, so it uses tools called kOps. This is it right here. And so kOps is an automatic provisioning system for a Kubernetes cluster, which is a fully automated installation. Okay, and so it uses DNS. But in this case, we are not going to use DNS, but all our configuration is going to look like we are going to configure it in the form of like a DNS, but we will not use an actual DNS. And we have it's going to have a self-healing capabilities. Okay, and you also have the possibility to run in an auto-scaling group. Okay, so that is it, guys. So before you begin, you must have, this is the requirement right here, you must have a kubectl installed. That is what I talked about. That is the only requirement. And then you must also install kOps. So that is what we are going to install right now. And also you must have AWS account. Okay, and then you also have that AWS account with a generated IAM keys. Okay, programmatic keys. So you need to have an IAM programmatic keys. So these are the three things that you need as a prerequisite. Moving forward, step 1 right here. Our instance that we are provisioning is a Linux instance. So watch out, this is for Mac and this is for Linux. So I'm going to switch to Linux and we'll go ahead and install that kOps using this command right here. Just copy that right here and we'll go back into our instance. Okay, so we will switch back to Paul, the user Paul, and let's go ahead and curl this command. Okay, once that is done, you observe that we have the file right there, and we are going to sudo move this file. I want to first of all begin by giving it, let's change the mode first. Okay, make it executable. Let's give it an executable mode, an executable permission. So we want to sudo chmod. You may choose not to use sudo. Okay, sudo chmod that configuration. Okay, it now has its executable mode, and you can do sudo move this folder, move that file onto the /etc oh sorry guys, onto /user /local and /bin and kOps. kOps is just the new folder that I'm creating right in there. So I'm going to move this kOps right. Yeah, so we are moving this configuration right here onto this location. It's okay. So to make it a little bit user friendly, this is super easy. If you go to the documentation, you see all of that right there. This is it in the documentation. So it's saying after you've curled this, the next thing you do, you just give an executable permission to that file, okay, to this file, to the kOps file, and go ahead and move this file into that location. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay, and then this is for if you are using macOS, you can install kOps using just this command. You'll be good with that. Okay, that is all. So I'm going to go ahead and we will just hit enter. And right now, if you run kOps, you should see that kOps will respond, guys. That's the simplest way and the easiest way on how to install kOps. Okay, all right. Now let's go ahead. Step 2. The next step, so you need to create a Route 53 domain. So we are not going to take all of this one, all this step, because we are not going to use any domain configuration. So it's a kOps uses a DNS for it uses a DNS for discovery. Okay, so both inside the cluster and outside, so that you can reach the Kubernetes API server from clients. Okay, so kOps has a strong opinion on the cluster name. This one is something that you're going to see how that's going to work, guys. So it should be a valid DNS name. That's what it's saying. And by doing so, you will no longer set your cluster confused. Okay, so you can share clusters with your colleagues, okay, and with less ambiguity, and then you can reach without relying on remembering IPs and addresses and all of that. So you can now probably shoot subdomains and all of that. So this is just saying that you should go ahead and create a domain. You should use a valid domain name. Okay, and that is, you can do that on Route 53. So that one it's not I'm not going to worry you guys about that one. It's going to be super easy. And so what we are going to do, we are just going to go ahead and configure our credentials. Okay, and configure our credentials. Let's see how we're going to go ahead and configure our credentials. For our credentials, let me first of all begin from here. So we do have AWS CLI installed, like I did talked about. AWS configure. Oh, AWS, I just do that and see that response. So it responds. So we have AWS CLI installed. So we'll do AWS configure. Okay, AWS configure, and that should request for our access key. These keys right here, I've just provisioned this key for temporary use, guys. So I'm going to cd into AWS right here, and I'm going to cut the keys that I have. Credentials. Let's see what we have. Oh, okay. I'm going to cd right back there. I'm looking for our access key, guys. Access and secret keys. Be advised that they are just temporal keys, like I said, guys. Okay, I'm checking out from where the keys are. Okay, great. I've seen where the keys are, guys. So I'm going to cd into .aws right there, and the keys should be right there. So cut the credentials right here, and this is the access key. This is temporal, guys, so right after this project I'm going to delete the keys right there. So put our access keys right here, and our secret keys are right here. I'll copy that right here, and we'll have our secret keys right there. And we do not want to specify any region. So once that is done, we do have a couple of S3 buckets that are configured. We can see that AWS S3 list. Okay, so it says there was an error with a signature. So it says when calling the list bucket configuration, so the request signature we calculated does not match the signature you provided. So we need to check that. So let's see that again. Okay, that's fine. We are going to go again. We are going to do that again. We are going to have the access key ID again. Just want to make sure that what we're doing, we have the right access key ID, and the secret key ID. Let's see that we have the right secret key ID. For the region, we just let it be default, and we will do AWS S3 list to see. Great. So a response, guys. So the error that we made was we didn't copy the key right. Okay, we didn't copy the key right. So that is it. You first of all want to you can be able to see your bucket right here. The bucket, these are the existing buckets that we have. I do have right now in my region, and on my AWS cloud space, which is fine. If you want to go ahead and I can show you how you can also create a bucket and then use the bucket to do the configuration. We can still use this bucket right here, but I do want to show you how you can create another bucket. Go ahead, create another bucket, which is AWS S3 make bucket. We can say AWS make bucket, and we have S3. We have that, and we can go ahead and give our bucket names. Our bucket name, we can just say demo, because we may want to call it demo cluster. And let me go ahead and do that demo. We can just say demo.local, okay? Demo.local. AWS make bucket S3 demo.local. We are using .local because it is required that you use a valid domain name. So if you don't have a valid domain name, it's not going to be able to, you're going to set the cluster in a confused state. Okay, so that is why we're having what we have here. So let's see what the documentation says. So if you have a valid domain like example.com, then you need to verify Route 53 by running this command. And so it says verify your Route 53 domain setup. It is the number one cause of problems if you don't have it right, guys. So if you don't have one, use what I just used, using the .local. So it says you can double check that and using your cluster configuration correctly if you have the dicto by running this command. So if you install the dicto, you can also test that your domain using this command. And the next step is to go ahead and create your S3 bucket. So we talked about the domain already, and I have bypassed the domain section by using the .local right here that I just indicated. So let's go ahead. So it says go ahead and create S3 bucket. So this is the command that we are going to use to create the S3 bucket. Sorry guys. Okay, so creating the S3 bucket is easy. You will do that AWS S3 make bucket, and you have that right there. And the bucket, I did say the bucket is demo.local. So let's see. S3 bucket failed. Answer error. Bucket is when calling the create bucket option, the request bucket name is not available. Oh yes, so the bucket name needs to be unique. Okay, it should be unique. That is the bucket name needs to be unique, like the most single bucket in the world. So if you are creating a bucket that already exists, it will not run. So let's go ahead and add a couple of figures right there. Let's say today is 0814. Let's go ahead and add 0814 right there, meaning August 14. Today is August 14. That's it. So the bucket is created, guys, with a bucket name that. So the bucket has been created. If we list the buckets now, we should see the bucket. And this is the bucket right here, demo 0814. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and do the configuration of our environmental variables. So for our environmental variables, we are going to just want to configure the state. We want to export the state of the kOps state configuration to be stored in the S3 bucket we just created. That is what it's saying. So I'm going to copy that, and we are going to have that right in here, which is okay, right? It's okay. We are going to have that command right here, and the main important thing to do is to make sure that you have your bucket name right here. So I'm going to delete all of this, and we will have our bucket name right there, because we want to configure our kOps. We want to configure the state file, that is the state file of the kOps configuration, to be stored in the S3 bucket. So that's why we're doing this configuration, guys. Let me see if we have a better configuration right here. So it says create an S3 bucket. That is it. We just create an S3 bucket. You're using the name. This is the name of the S3 bucket right here. So we have to do configure this one. We want to configure this file. We want to. So it says you can export. We need to export this configuration into the bash profile, file. So let's go ahead and do that, guys. It's easy. So the first thing we want to do is to change this into our bucket name, demo 0814. dot local, and that's it. And we will get over here. I'm going to do sudo echo. We will echo that guy instead of exporting that. So we'll do sudo echo. We can have that, and I can have export. We'll have export. So we are exporting that onto the .bash rc file. So sudo echo this onto that's what we're going to have. Sudo echo export the kOps state file onto the .bash rc file. That's what we're saying. Okay, that works. So let's go ahead and cut that and make sure that we have the file exported, guys. So we're going to use sudo cut the .bash rc. We will cut that file and check to make sure that it was exported. This is it right here, guys. We have that exported right here. So everything looks good. And we can go ahead. The next thing we want to do is to go ahead and source the .bash rc file. Let's source it. Okay, let's see. And that is good. And right now we are going to go ahead and create our cluster. Build your cluster configuration using kOps create right here. So if you run the kOps create command, we should be able to create our cluster right here. And for the cluster name, we can go ahead and set the cluster name, right? We can set the cluster name as well, which is easy. We can do that. We can go ahead and do a configuration setting our cluster name. So we can do this. Can record this. I can come back right here and we can set our cluster name. We can say cluster name. Yep, cluster name is such that is equal to, we can call our cluster name we can call that to be, we can say our cluster name is equal to $name. Okay, we can call that $name. Yep, cluster name is equal to $name. Let me make sure. I just want to double check this configuration, guys. Cluster name equals to $name. And we can also have, yes, we can fix that, guys. I want to fix this up. Just one moment, and we can fix that up. I want to make sure that I double check that to make sure that that is correct, guys. I don't want us to do that twice, to maybe do the configuration and find out that it doesn't work right. So just 1 second. I'm looking out for a way to verify that. I'm checking some documentation. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. Just want to make sure that the cluster name is right. The way, the configuration, the setup that I want to have for the cluster name. Okay, so I can set that up. To be equal to this. Let's see. Okay, export cluster name equal to that, and export cluster name equal to this. All right. Okay, guys. Yeah, sure. I do have the configuration right here as well. We can pull that. I can show you exactly where the configuration is. Okay, let's see. Just one moment. Let's see. We are going to my GitHub account. Just do that right here. Let's go to the GitHub account. I want to confirm the configuration. Okay, I'm going to some repos. Do have some repos right here. Let's check that configuration of the cluster name. I do just want to make sure that everything looks good. Let's see. We have kOps installation. Let's see this. I do have some documentation. Good. Right here. All right. This is the configuration, guys, that I was talking about. Just these two. Yes. So we can set kOps cluster name equal to that and name equal to that. This is the two configuration that we want to have. Okay. We can begin with the first one. Or both of the configuration. We can just get over here, copy that, get here, and we can exit all of that, and we can vi into the .bash file rc. And once we are in this file, we can get right over here, and we'll go into an insert mode, and we have that right there. So our cluster name is going to be Paul Cube8.local, this right here. So you can change it, you can modify it as however you want to do it, guys. It will still work. So I'm going to go ahead and we will exit. And we are going to source that same file again. We just did that, and that is fine. And the next thing we want to do is to create the cluster. So creation of the cluster is going to be kOps create cluster --name. The name of our cluster, I can just have $name right here, and we can do the --zones. We set the zones. The zones can be equal to US East to A. US is to A. That is the zones, and we can go ahead and set the node count. We just say node counts equal to 2, and we can also set the, let's see, the node count equals to 2. What else do we need, guys? We can have --yes. Let's see, node count is equals to 2. Yes, let's double check that. We do have the command right here on the documentation, on kOps documentation right here. Yes, it's right here. So it says this is a command after we've had our S3, we've had all of that. So kOps create this. This is the command to create that. But I just wanted to add the node count right there so that we should be able to validate that, so that it won't be any issue with that. Okay, I think everything looks good, and let's see if we have any error doing that. There's an error on that one, guys. Let's see what we have. Let's see. Okay, so it has a kOps create cluster, the cluster name, and the state, as well as, so the zones, the state is that, the zones is that, and I do not need to worry about this, the zones. Oh no, I took care of the zone. I do not have to worry about the states right here. I do not have to worry about the states, but you can still have the states. Okay, so that's fine. And let's look at what we have here. Yeah, so they are just giving you multiple options. The options that you may want to use, the node count equals to that, and you have the zones. That's fine. It's totally fine, you know. There is nothing much that is complicated right here, because the cloud is just right there. The cloud, they choose to specify the cloud in this case, and they choose to specify the control plane right here. Control plane zones. Okay, that's it right there. Okay, that is totally fine. So we don't have to specify so many things though, but we may just choose to specify our state if we want, but it's totally fine. Once you run this, we have a kOps create that dash name. I just need to add that dash nodes right here. Node count equal to 2 dash yes. Let's see what we have. Okay, good. I do have that right here, the configuration right here. Let's go ahead and use this one. We can still use the same configuration that they have right here, and change just our DNS name. That will still be fine. Okay, yes, this is still fine. Okay, this is still fine. You can do simple configuration like this one, and change just the DNS name, which is your demo cluster name, and then you include dash yes right there. So this is what they want you to have. So this would just be a demo 08. No, the cluster name, guys, the cluster name that I had was Paul, but I could still have just $name right here, because if you echo $name, you should have the cluster name right here. $name. So this is a cluster name right here. So obviously, if you use even $name in this case, if you use $name right here, you could say kOps create cluster. Create cluster $name, and you set dash dash yes. This is totally fine. This will go ahead and be able to create your cluster. But I do want to include zones. When you have zones, you can set that to US-East2, because I want to do that in US East 2, that is 2A. Yes, that is it. If I do this, it's going to go ahead and create our cluster. And the good news is, once it provisions this cluster, you can be able to go into the cluster and do your updates. Okay, versus the number of nodes that you want, you can do all those settings before you go ahead and validate your cluster. Okay, so the cluster is right there. So I'm going to go ahead and we are going to go ahead and run this to update our cluster before we validate the cluster. Okay, that is it right here. This one is requesting that we can go ahead and validate the cluster. But we can update the cluster before we validate the cluster. Okay, so updating the cluster is easy. We can just go ahead, we do kOps validate update cluster, sorry. And then we have $name right there. Update cluster, $name. Okay, it's updated, but we need to do edit. We can edit that so that we can specify our nodes. kOps edit cluster, that, and this is the cluster, guys. So this is a cluster. The cluster name is right here, and we are going to go ahead and check the number of nodes, the node count. So this is a cluster name with all its configuration. Okay, let's check it out. Let's check it out. Let's see what we have. Okay. Okay, that is a subnet, and these are all the configurations. Let's see. Okay, great. Okay, that is the instance is right here. So the control plane is right there, and this is the instance group, the control plane. Let's go ahead and see the next instance group. The nodes, what we're looking at is for the nodes, guys. Let's see if there are options that we can include our nodes. Okay, yeah, so that is the reason why I wanted to make sure that I specify our nodes right from the creation time. Okay, because this is going to go ahead and provision the cluster by itself, and we would not be able to have the nodes. It will require us to update this file and be able to add the nodes, okay, before we can have that. So I'm going to go ahead and we will come out of this. Let's come out of this. Once we're out of this, we can still delete this cluster right back, okay? Delete the cluster. Delete cluster, that, and we will have dash dash yes. We'll delete back the cluster. So that is a good thing about the concept of kOps. Okay, you can launch and your cluster, instantly scale the cluster, manage the cluster as in any format that you want. Okay, so that is the cluster that we just provisioned that is being deleted because I did wanted to have the configuration of the number of instances that the number of node group nodes that we want, but I didn't add it at the time of creation of this cluster. So while it's deleting, I'm going to look for an ideal command that we can use to be able to provision that with the cluster. So this is the command that we're going to use. So we're going to use kop create cluster, that dash name. We have the name right there, and the zones is right here, and the node count. We will have the node counts and then the node size as well. Node count, node size, and then the master as well. So this is the command that we'll ideally use. So I'm going to show this again to you guys, whoever that want to take note of this. If you are watching this video and you are interested to get that. So this is the command kOps create cluster, the dash name, which is I have configured it such that the name of the cluster is $name, and dash zones, the number of count, that is the number of node, the node count. This is what I was trying to set up. This is what I was missing, the node count, and then the node size, as well as the master size. These are the things I was supposed to specify, which I did not. So the cluster is completely deleted, okay? And right now we can still go ahead and run this other command and see create a different cluster. kOps create cluster, the dash name, and that is it. And it will create for us an immediate cluster. Okay, so it's reviewing changes that will be made. This is great. Okay, that is it. And if you can go ahead right now, you can do kOps get cluster right here. And this is the cluster. The cluster has been provisioned right here. And with all its configuration, the networking, security group, the subnets, and just everything, guys, the instance group and everything. Okay, so we can do kOps update cluster. We can update that cluster. Or edit. We can edit that first. We can do that. kOps edit cluster. With that, you can, so that we can see everything right back as we did talked about. Let's see what we have. I can just set that to $name right here. Right there. What did we miss, guys? Let's see. kOps edit. Yes. Edit cluster. And we will see the entire configuration right here. This is the entire configuration, and with the number of node groups it's specified in here, the instance group as well. Let's see. Yes, so if we go right now, we are going to validate this cluster. We'll go ahead and validate that. Let's go ahead and validate the cluster, because all of this, that's the configuration. You can modify it as you want. Right now, if we go to our console, you will not see the cluster. This one is the first. I'm going to refresh this. The cluster is not yet provisioned, okay, because it gives you the cluster is not yet provisioned, okay, because this one is terminated. You can see that they are both terminated. This one right here, the node, this is a node, and this was the first control plane of the first cluster that was provisioned. So it's been terminated. That's why you see right here is terminated. So I'm going to go ahead and validate this one, validate the one that we just provisioned, and we will be able to see that the instance is being able to be provisioned right there. So we'll do kOps validate cluster. Validate cluster, and I'm going to go ahead and put a dash yes, or we can say dash wait. Let's wait for 10 minutes. Okay, dash wait 10 minutes. That is to give it some time to be able to be provisioned. Let's see the error message in this case. Let's see. Okay, so we just edited the cluster. Okay, that's okay. Let's see what we have. kOps validate cluster, the cluster name, dash wait 10 minutes. Let's see the recommended commands right here. Let's see. Okay, kOps update cluster. We can choose to do this before we do the validation. It's still fine. Whichever that we use, guys, is still fine. So let's see. Yes, let's go ahead and do that. So we are going to do, we can first of all update the cluster first. Okay, we update the cluster before we validate the cluster. Okay. So there are no changes. There are no changes. So if we made any changes, you must apply dash yes before you can have your changes being applied. Okay, great. And we can do that again and push the dash yes, because though we didn't have changes, but we can just do that. There aren't any changes though. So our cluster is being validated, guys. And we can go ahead. It's being updated. Sorry, guys, it's being updated, and now we can go ahead and validate our cluster here. Once we validate this, it's going to take a short while, and it will provision our cluster. So it's still waiting for the cluster right here. The cluster is still provisioning. We did specify that it should wait 10 minutes, so that is, it will take a while to provision our cluster. And without much, let's check right here. If I'm going to refresh right here right now, we will see, let's see, the cluster is already being created. Great. This is a cluster, it's being created. Okay, this is the control plane right here. The control plane is right here, right below here, and the two node groups is right here. So it's taking its time to provision, guys. And this is a jump server. This one is a jump server that we had. Okay, so by default, when you don't specify node groups, you will, with the node count and the count, the node size, this is what you expect by default. You expect instance type of T3 medium by default if you follow that. So this is our cluster, the master node or the control plane, and you also have your two worker nodes right here, guys. So that is the fastest way that you can go ahead and provision your Kubernetes cluster, and from there you can start running your installation as well as provisioning your services, your pods, and creation of your deployments as you want. Okay, you can go ahead, write your manifest file and start creating your deployment, or creating your service, or creating your horizontal auto scaling group, as in whatever way that you want. Okay, so that is it. We are going to go ahead and stop right here, so that we don't want this video to be too long. If you have any question or concerns, go ahead and put your concerns or questions in the chat, guys. But we can go ahead, we can still be patient a little bit just to make sure that we have our cluster completely being created right here from that short 10 minutes. So you may want to just forward this video, just fast forward it a little bit, and so that you can just see the end where the cluster has been created. So we will wait right here for the cluster to come on. It's being created. If we go back to our console, we will observe that it's being initialized right here, because from here we can go ahead and still be able to do kOps get cluster. We'll see our cluster. The cluster will be right there, and let's give it just a moment. Okay, so why that is going on, guys, there are another important thing that I wanted to show you guys. So you do have a possibility where you can also, like right now, your workspace, you can create your workspace just directly from your GitHub account. Okay, you do not need to be running your workspace on your machine or having your machine slow down. You can do work from a workspace directly from your browser. Okay, like right here, I do have a workspace right here. So this is a workspace that is directly, GitHub has made this possible, that you can directly work from your browser right here. This is just a bonus, guys. So usually you just go to your console or to your repo, and you click on this, on your icon. Let's see, on your photo icon right here. Okay, let me go ahead and reduce that. Okay, I'm just going to refresh that, guys. I'm going to close this. So if I do GitHub, let's look at our GitHub account. So right here, if you go right from here, you look at this space right here, your code space, and you can go from right here and you can create your code space and work directly from your browser. That's another important thing, that you don't have to work your machine a lot, have a lot of code that is being piled onto your system, and working out your CPU utilization of your machine so much that you cannot sustain, so that you want to take care of your system, guys. So it's still provisioning. It's provisioning. In just a moment, we are going to have it up, guys. So this is the networking. That is the interesting thing about this. So it has an entire networking for the configuration. Okay, beginning from the VPC, the subnet, the CIDR blocks, it configure all the CIDR block automatically, and also the security groups, it configure all of that. Okay, it configures all of that, so you do not need to get confused on what you should do as far as the configuration is concerned. It's a configure plus the ingress, and you can just use the AD command and customize what it provisions, and you can customize that before you go ahead and do your validation. Okay, so the goal of it was to show you that how fast it is to just launch your cluster, and that is it, guys. So let's see, it's provisioning. So it would take a while, guys. It would take like maybe 10 minutes or more, a little bit, 10 minutes, and before it will be able to provision for you that provision the instance and the node groups and the cluster. So why is provisioning? Let's go ahead and we are going to switch over to this terminal, and let's see. I'm going to create another terminal right here. Let's see something right here. All right, I'm going to cd into SSH. Let's see what we have. Okay, we're going to go ahead. That is, we're going to grab the key or the IP. The IP is right from over here on the console. We're going to go back to the console, guys, and we will grab the IP of that instance from right here. Okay, I'm going to refresh this. And so this is the master, this is the control plane, the master control plane from right here, and this is your two node groups. So you can scale this. Okay, you can create a horizontal auto scaling group, and it will be able to scale out the provisioning, okay, the ports for your deployment for each time you create your objects. Okay, you can create a horizontal auto scaling group and attach on that cluster, and it will be scaling your application as much as you want. Okay, let's see what do we have here. Okay, this is where I was, this is what I want. Okay, great. Let's do this. So let's see what we have. kubectl get all. kubectl get all It's requesting for my password. Let's see what we have. It's requiring username. Let's see, username. It's not supposed to request for my username and password. You must be logged in to the server unauthorized. So I should be able to run this kubectl command from here. Let's see, kubectl is responding. And we can do, okay. Yes, so we are supposed to generate a key, right? So we are supposed to generate a key as well. SSH key gen. SSH, we are supposed to generate an SSH key right here. And we'll have that key right here. Let's see. Okay, so when we have the SSH key right there, we are supposed to copy that key according to the configuration that we have. So let's see, that is the reason why they're requesting for additional permission for us to be able to do some additional configuration, guys. Let's see what we have for the key. So I'm going to go ahead and look for the configuration. It has all the configuration over there, but I just want to make sure that we have we check out for the recommendation. So we are supposed to generate the SSH key and then copy the SSH key. Okay. Okay, let's see what we have on the cluster. Okay. Let's see. So it's still validating the cluster. Let's see what we have. Okay, yeah, we are not able to get all because we did not create the SSH key before validating the cluster. We are supposed to create an SSH key before we validate the cluster, guys. So we are going to end here, but the main thing is the only thing you have to do is to make sure that you validate the SSH key before you create this cluster. So that way you will not have any unexpected error. Let's see what we have. Okay, let's get here and we can see, let's see what we have. kubectl. Sudo kubectl get all. Let's see. Error, server doesn't have resources for all. Let's see. We are going to do this. Okay, let's see. Sudo user change. kOps git cluster. kOps git cluster. Okay, so it says request the value, please set this equals to export. Okay, so let's see. All right, okay, that's totally fine. That's fine, guys. So it's unable to validate the cluster because of the indication issues. So we are going to stop the video here and we will check exactly what is the problem, and we will do part 2 of this video. All right, guys, thank you for watching. If you have any question or comment or has any suggestion, go ahead and put it in the comment section, guys. Thank you for watching.